Well, good morning. We have 4 bills before us today. The first is introductory number 985A, sponsored by Council members Comrie, Arroyo, Crowley, Cabrera, Dickens, Fidler, Gentili, Greenfield, James, Koslowitz, Palmer, Vallone, Williams, Chin, Nelson, Rodriguez, Capel, Gonzalez, Vaca, Jackson, King, Rose, Drum, Weprin, Garodnik, Barron, Levine, Eugene, Gennaro, Koo, Lappin, Halloran, and Ulrich. During major storms, many above-ground power lines are susceptible of failure or damage as a result of falling trees and strong winds. This legislation will require the report be commissioned by the Office of Long-Term Planning and Sustainability that studies weather-related outages of both above-ground power lines and below-ground power lines and their associated costs. The report will include recommendations of where it may be practical to consider relocating above-ground power lines to underground locations, and I'd like to thank Director of the Office of Long-Term Planning and Sustainability, Serge Manoveski, and his staff for working on this bill, along with my City Office of Legislative Affairs and the City Council for approving this legislation. And now we are going to have some words from the person who sponsored the bill, and then you'll be happy to. Your name was first, so I guess you can go first.
Good morning to you. Good morning. I want to thank the mayor for agreeing to sign the bill today, and the speaker and my council colleagues for.
That's all right. Okay.
For this, didn't break. It just moved. Yeah. Superstorm Sandy left millions of residents without power or access to communication. One thing we learned in the storm's aftermath is that those with underground power lines were less vulnerable by the storm's impact, but also we needed to look at how we harden and take care of those issues also. Residents with underground power lines had this power restored relatively quickly, while those with above-ground power lines had, in some instances, had to wait weeks for restoration. We need to start discussing how to better protect our energy infrastructure so that we can mitigate the impact of future natural disasters. This legislation is a meaningful first step towards making that happen. Studying this problem will give us a better idea of where utility lines can be strategically placed. The study will also provide a cost estimate of doing so, allowing us to work with utility companies to ensure that it is not cost prohibitive and that costs will not be entirely passed on to customers. By identifying areas and costs, the city will be able to start discussing the viability of these projects so that we can better protect our residents, small business, and infrastructure. I again want to thank the mayor and the speaker for their leadership on this issue, and also take an opportunity to thank them for all their efforts in trying to deal with the aftermath of Superstorm Sandy. The mayor especially has been very forward-thinking and progressive in trying to show that the issues of Superstorm Sandy are mitigated properly. Thank you.
Very nice to say so. Councilman?
Thank you. This bill has been a long time in coming, so I wanted to thank the mayor for making it a reality today and the study that it authorizes. And I want to thank Councilman Comrie, my colleague, for starting the process by introducing this bill. I've been calling on the city to bury all the remaining overhead power lines for many, many years now. And as the councilman said, Hurricane Sandy proved just how vulnerable we are, particularly in South Brooklyn, when it comes to antiquated overhead power lines. All told, the hurricane took down about 150 miles of cable, knocking out power for over 2 million people. But while neighborhoods served by underground power lines had theirs restored in a few days, as the councilman just said, it took weeks to restore for those with above-ground power lines. So when a big storm hits this city, you can be sure that the power will be knocked out somewhere in my district, particularly in Dyker Heights and parts of Bensonhurst. So we need to make every effort to improve the resiliency of our city's electrical system, not just for South Brooklyn, where I come from, but for Staten Island, Queens, and all of New York City, and that's why this study is so important. We must find ways to strengthen our infrastructure following the hurricane, and we need to take that experience and learn from it. And I think that's what this study does and authorizes that to be, and I'm hoping that my neighborhoods, as well as others, are all studied in this once this bill is signed. So thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Councilman Comrie.
You're welcome. We have Claudio DeMeo. DeMeo, sorry, I can't read.
Thank you for the opportunity. In the event the power goes out, my mom, who was elderly, would have difficulties which would be prevented if the power lines were underground. She's a senior citizen living alone. One time the power went out due to a storm, and I couldn't reach my mom via the telephone at home. So I had to go out in the storm and check on her. If the power didn't go out, then the phone would have been working. I could have given her instructions over the phone, and I could have checked on her that way. By putting them underground, we eliminate a number of problems. My mother could have been reached. I could have given her instructions, and plus, she would have had power. So I want to thank the mayor, the city council, Council Gentili, for this survey. Thank you.
You're welcome. Anybody else? I'd just like to point out this calls for a study. How much it would cost and how we would ever fund it is a separate issue, but that should be part of the study. Be happy to sign the bill. The second bill before us today is introductory number 887A, which is sponsored by Council members Gennaro, Brewer, Fidler, James, Capel, Koslowitz, Lander, Mendez, Rose, Van Bremer, Williams, Levin, Jackson, Drum, Chin, Lappin, Arroyo, Barron, Crowley, Eugene, Greenfield, Koo, and Palmer. New York State and New York City offer a myriad of programs and services to assist property owners in potentially adopting renewable energy systems within their homes and businesses. These programs currently cannot be found in a central location, which may limit the ability for some New Yorkers to learn how to implement these renewable energy options. Introductory number 887A will require the creation of a New York City renewable energy portal, which will provide online information and links to city, state, and federal programs and agencies that may be involved in the installation of renewable energy systems, as well as provide for a cost calculator so that the public can determine whether installing a renewable energy system is right for them. This web portal will be completed by November 1st, 2013, and I would like to thank the Director of the Office of Long-Term Planning and Sustainability, Serge Manovsky, and his staff for working on this bill, along with my Office of Legislative Affairs and the City Council for approving this legislation. We have a City Councilman who I'm sure would like to say something. Okay, haven't seen you in a long time.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for your leadership on the environment. This is a bill that we thought of that is very much in line with the thinking of this administration. We all need to go green, and the best way to do that is to put all the information together in one place. So one-stop shopping, and the Mayor summarized the main thrust of the bill, and we're very happy about it. And it was one of the easiest hearings we ever had. Sergey came, he sat down and goes, "This sounds like a great idea. Let's work together to get it done." It was wonderful cooperation, so it's a great day. I want to thank Nick Wadzowski, who was an intern at the time for the Environmental Protection Committee, who came back for this big day, and thank you for coming back. And I was wondering if Nick could get a pen, too.
Absolutely. Trust me, he can even get a picture.
Okay, great. And we also have Samara Swanson from the council who worked long and hard on this bill, and I thank her for that. I want to thank you, Mr. Mayor, for your environmental leadership and for your good team that helped us to get this done.
Happy to do it. Anybody like to add anything? If not, I will sign the bill.
Nick, Samara, come on.
Pick up here.
The strap is in the way of the line. Oh, it's a little bit. Thanks.
overworked. You're probably close to work. He did nothing.
You took all the, you take my
Oh, I'm
stuff
sorry,
along with
I took
yours?
your
That's
stuff
all right.
too, I think.
It would have, yes, that
Yeah.
would have ended the number of
Okay.
bills.
Okay.
The final two bills before us today are introductory numbers 75A and 399A, which together ensures that plantings done by the Department of Parks and Recreation reflect our efforts to regulate stormwater, increase native biodiversity whenever possible. Introductory number 75A, sponsored by council members Gennaro, Brewer, Chin, Fiddler, James, Capel, Lander, Mark Viverito, Nelson, Williams, Van Bremer, 11, Garodnick, Crowley, Valone, Gonzalez, Weprin, Van, Lappin, Koslowitz, Rodriguez, Rivera, Greenfield, Vaca, Jackson, Drum, Arroyo, Barron, Eugene, Koo, Palma, Ulrich, and Halloran. As part of the Plan YC's Sustainability Stormwater Management Plan, the city recommends and often uses green infrastructure to control and detain the stormwater. This is an important step in helping to reduce the billions of gallons of polluted rainwater that enter New York City harbors every year. This legislation requires the Parks Department to create a stormwater retention manual that will identify plants suitable for stormwater retention and be made available to the public. Plantings conducted by the department beginning next spring will follow the guidelines outlined in the manual. Introductory number 399A is sponsored by council members Van, Comrie, Fiddler, James, Palmer, Williams, Van Bremer, Rodriguez, Nelson, Levin, Mark Viverito, Drum, Chin, Capel, Gennaro, Arroyo, Barron, Crowley, Eugene, Greenfield, Jackson, Koo, and Lappin. Invasive plant species cost the city millions of dollars a year to eradicate and outcompete native plant species, which are important to the city's native biodiversity. The Parks Department has made efforts to ensure that plantings done within the city increase native biodiversity whenever possible. This legislation will require the Parks Department update to design manuals to increase biodiversity in its landscape practices. And beginning next spring, all plantings conducted by the department will conform to this manual. In addition, the Parks Department will create a native species planting guide that will be available to property owners and professional land managers. The planting guide will advise the public on suitable native plants, their characteristics and compatibility with other plants. And I would like to thank Parks Commissioner Veronica White, Parks Chief of Forestry and Natural Resources Bram Gunther, and their staffs for working on this bill, along with Reggie Thomas from my Office of City Legislative Affairs and the City Council for approving this legislation. Councilman, would you like to say something?
Thank you again, Mr. Mayor. It was wonderful to work with the Parks Department. This was a long process to get these bills done, and right in the middle of us doing these bills, we had a third bill that was going to do more with regard to invasive species, but the state acted before we did, so that took care of that issue. But this is going to, these bills, when put forward together, are going to make the Parks Department literally write the book on how plants could be used to both retain stormwater and also to increase biodiversity. Two things which are very, very important. And as always, it was a pleasure to work with your administration to get these good bills done. I want to thank Reggie, who really had his head in this too, and I urge the mayor to sign the bill. Thanks very much.
Anybody like to add anything? If not, I will sign the bill.